I have seen as well kind of a shift in people watching sports, cheering for that team, not just because they are or aren't men or women.
Yeah.
It's because that's a good display of athleticism.
How you doing? This is Misha Horsey here with Business of Basketball. We have Donna Woodruff. She has been an integral part, you don't know, in my life. From a leadership perspective, she has an extensive list of opportunities within athletics, within the athletic field. And so I'm excited for you guys to listen, to hear her journey, her experience, and how she got into athletics, being a former Division I athlete. So thank you for your time.
Absolutely thrilled to be here with you.
So tell me about how you got to, you're currently the assistant vice president and athletic director at Loyola. So tell me your career path from being a Division I athlete to then getting in the field of athletics, and what inspired you to get here?
This was not my career goal. Super thrilled that this is where I landed, but it was not my career goal. I was going to be an attorney, right? In high school, I like to argue. I like to debate. I was an English major because you have to write as an attorney, took Latin. I was going to be an attorney. And then when I finished my senior year of field hockey, I played field hockey and lacrosse in college. I had the opportunity given to me to play field hockey after I graduated in England.
Nice.
And much to my own surprise, me and a teammate accepted that opportunity, which delayed me. Even though I had taken the LSATs, it delayed me in applying to law school.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when I came back from that, which was a great experience, I now was going to have to apply to law school, and which I was ready to do. But of course, now you have a whole year until you would start again. And my former coaches asked at Penn, which is where I went to school, asked if I would coach with them. And so I said, great, I'll coach for a year. And I loved it.
Yeah.
I was kind of a little bit of a coach on the field as a player.
Yep.
So being in the coaching role ended up being a little bit of a natural progression.
Yep.
But what I found over time was I actually enjoyed more seeing how everything operated in an athletics department. I enjoyed trying to put situations together that allowed our student athletes to experience success, have a good time, love their experience, which I did as a student athlete.
Yep.
And I had someone in the athletics department who suggested to me, I think you might be good as an administrator. So that just opened up a whole, a view of what I could do. And so that started me on the career path of actually looking at athletics administration as what I would do in my career.
Tell me more about when they mentioned that, you would be good in administration. And there's some key, specific skill set that he saw in you that made him, say that you would be perfect for it, or something that you identify early?
Yes. Yeah. Here's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
The person was a woman. And so she was, managing the department as the SWA. And what she pointed out was that I seemed to like figuring, the bigger picture out.
Got it.
Talk to her. And I did not realize it at the time. She was mentoring me, but I didn't realize it.
Wow.
And so now as I'm, moved on in my career, I appreciate and realize how valuable that is for whomever comes after you. Right?
Yeah.
She recognized, decision making, appreciating the bigger picture.
Yep.
I would talk to her about some of the things I was learning in my master's, classes about higher education, which were not about sports. They were about the way that a college or a university works.
Yep.
And I thought it was like, oh, this is really exciting.
Yeah.
There's fudges, things when you're an athlete, you have no idea about.
Behind the scenes, you have no idea what's happening. Yeah.
And then even as a coach, sometimes you don't appreciate everything that may be going on in decision making as to how you get money, how you make decisions about who travels, what, all those things.
Let's talk about some of the significant positions you've had. We met through Stony Brook University. Yep. You were the senior woman administrator. So tell me about that specific role. And then how you got to be the assistant vice president, obviously, you know, in athletic director here at Loyola. So talk to me about that position at Stony Brook.
Yeah. So I ended up being at Stony Brook for 13 years. So there was a progression of different positions, different titles, et cetera. But during the time that I was there, I always served as the SWA, which is, the NCAA designation that every Division I institution must have their
Got it.
senior woman in the department designated as the SWA.
Okay.
It's that designation has been in place for a long time, and it allows the institution from a leadership standpoint to have some diversity of thought, and leadership. And I took that role seriously, as well as the rest of my responsibilities, which were overseeing some sport programs, which were eventually, as the deputy athletic director, dealing with human resources on campus, dealing with budget projections, strategic planning, facilities operations, student athlete issues, celebrating championships, and helping along the way. And as you maybe remember, I remember when you were being recruited as a student athlete, and sometimes in my role, while I didn't have to recruit student athletes specifically for programs, coaches sometimes would ask us, would you meet with a recruit, and maybe their family member, maybe a coach that they brought, whatever it may be. And I saw my role at that time was to help recruit, but also to learn. And also assessing, is this student athlete going to be a good fit? Who we are, how we do things. So
I want to touch on one of the things that you just mentioned, because as a basketball trainer, I always talk to my athletes about, making sure that you're also the right fit for the school that you want to go to. So I just want to touch on a point that you just made. As the senior women administrator and now athletic director, what makes an athlete a great fit for your institution?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is you have to be really honest about what your institution is or isn't.
Right.
So let's just say, for example, your institution doesn't have engineering, right? But I love you as a basketball player and you want to be an engineer. That's not a great fit. I don't have engineering.
Right.
That's not fair to you. And, maybe we can find things like, why don't you go this track? And then, but that may not be the right fit. You also have to think about what is important to you. For me, what's important to me is integrity, right? Willingness to work hard, wants to do well in their academics as well. But also it has to match up with what the coach is looking for, and that may be, hey, I need someone, just, you might not be able to tell, but, I'm 5'4". Well, if the coach is looking for someone who's 6 foot, I may not be a good fit. And so I would always encourage young people and those that are supporting them to ask questions of those that are recruiting them. So in a way that gets you to know enough about that school, what it's going to be like, what the team is going to be like, to find out if you might match up with it, and be honest with yourself.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Let's go back to your role of where you are now. What are the day-to-day responsibilities?
Every day is different, right? There's the basic stuff that you are responsible for when you're a director of athletics, and that's everything from the budget to hiring, and unfortunately, in some cases, letting go. People. Managing those that do, like, let's say the finances, do the compliance, do whatever those different roles are. So managing them on a day-to-day basis. In my particular case, I sit on the president's cabinet, so interacting with leaders across campus as well as our president for the bigger picture of the university. And where does athletics fall in that? How do we help with the bigger picture, right? Whether that's school spirit or whether that's revenue generation, and then also how can everything that advancement is doing and marketing and communications, everybody around that table, our provost, what they do, how can that help, and integrate with athletics? So, you're always looking at the bigger picture. But obviously one of the great things is, like, I don't coach the student athletes. I don't interact with them every day, all day during the day, but I try to be at as many home contests as I can. And that's what we're doing this for, so that they have a great experience. And so that's some of my best parts of my day, are being on the sidelines, of whether it's, swimming or basketball or, any of our other sports. That's the greatest part. Then I would throw in there's always something, if not 10 things that come up during the day that you weren't expecting.
Right. So you gotta be
nimble. And that's
adept.
And I think that's why former athletes kind of like these roles. And that's I've always said that I actually get a little bit, I could never do a desk job totally. It would be a little too boring for me. I actually like the chaos. I don't want, destruction, but I like the chaos and then trying to figure out the problem.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And also too, just like schedule, right? How demanding is the schedule? I can imagine you have to be at a lot of the events, right? The athletic events. So how have you been able to navigate the demand of the job too?
Yeah. When people talk about work-life balance, You just have to know that this is what work life is going to look like in this role.
Yeah.
And if you accept that and know that and are okay with it, whether that is a 9-to-5 job, whether that is a shift worker that, works from midnight to 8, like if you know that and you are okay with it, then you can be successful in that environment. For me, I'm okay with it, right? I was here probably about 7:30 this morning because I had something that I had to work on, and we have a soccer game tonight, that it doesn't start until 7:00, and I'll be here for that.
Right. So tell me about the landscape of college athletics, right? Like, from what I can remember, my experience was like, you got a scholarship, and also depending on like your meal plan, right, you got like a couple of dollars, right, for that. And that was it, unless you were able to get extra financial assistance. The landscape has changed so much in terms of, opportunities between athletes, athletics. So tell me about the college landscape now, today, versus when you were, let's say, at Stony Brook.
Yeah.
What's the difference from then and now?
Yeah, we're talking at a time right now where there is a lot of change in athletics, and there's also still some unknown.
Yeah.
So that's okay. That's part of the chaos, for sure, and trying to figure it out. There are 360 some Division I institutions, right? And then there's Division II institutions, Division III institutions, NAIA school, junior colleges, myriad opportunities to participate in college athletics.
Yeah.
But if we talk about Division I, and the institutions that we were involved in, I'd say over probably the last 15 years, really, the between all of us as member institutions, and then just maybe some demands that have come from student athletes as well as families and stuff, we've expanded a lot of what we're able to, how we're able to support student athletes beyond just their scholarship, which is typically, room, board, tuition, books, and fees. And I think we've gotten to the point where we're allowed to give more to help supplement some of those, let's say, regular living kind of things that maybe don't have specifically to do with athletics. We've expanded, our mental health, resources that are expected for student athletes across the board. But every institution can only do what they can financially afford to.
Yeah.
So there are still great differences between some schools. But I think the base level is we're trying to do as much as we can for the student athletes. And certainly not everybody gets a full scholarship and, or even a partial scholarship. There are so many that are, paying or subsidizing their education. But we've also moved into that space for name, image, and likeness.
Yeah, I was going to talk about
collectives,
that.
And outside opportunities for student athletes. The way it's meant to be is to be compensated for who they are as a student. You kind of like, you're an entity. You want to do a commercial? You used to not be able to do that.
Yeah.
And you can say, I'm a student athlete at Stony Brook, and, I'm the starting point guard, and you should buy my, sports drink.
Yeah.
Right? And you should make money for that. And
got it.
I'd say at the same time, it's a little bit of the wild, wild west right now for some schools, and hopefully that balances out a little bit. But student athletes do have an opportunity to generate a little bit more, revenue that allows them to take advantage of that.
Yeah. And how has the NIL impacted college athletics here, right, in your experience? What are you noticing, and how are you preparing even athletes in terms of like athlete management based on this concept?
Again, a lot of it is still changing. For us, a lot of it is education, that we're allowed to provide to our student athletes. And so as soon as it passed a few years ago, we made sure that our student athletes, as they come in through compliance, are educated on what this means, what it means to use your name, image, and likeness. We don't set up for them that, hey, go to this company and ask them if they want to, use your name, image, and likeness, and how much it should be, because we have to be very careful, have always had to be very careful the last few years about what advice we're giving or we're giving. For us here, our student athletes, maybe they wanted to start a camp. Great. You used to not be able to do that. They can do that, and they can generate revenue for them, income for themselves. We've had a student athlete that, Under Armour, one of our partners, paid as a model.
Yeah.
And that was great, right? That's great for us. We want them to to be out there generating, opportunities for themselves. And we want to help support them in those kind of ways.
How has recruiting affected this, right? Like, do people ask questions about the NIL? Like, if I'm on an official visit, I'm an upcoming college player. Do those questions come up?
Absolutely comes up. I've had parents that have said, what are you doing about NIL? And we just say what we are doing, from the education to different opportunities that are available. And another school may be saying, yep, everybody on our basketball team, right now has signed NIL deals for this much. So the answers may be different.
Mm-hmm.
But to your question as to whether or not it's coming up a lot, absolutely more than.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, than ever. So you just have to be prepared with what your answers are.
Yeah. Let's stay on recruiting. AAU played a major role in my ability to have exposure to colleges to ultimately get a college scholarship. So AAU, I think, in my opinion, has changed drastically. AAU used to be a platform or a space where you had to really be high level, right, in terms of your skill set to play. I think now it's more pay to play, right? Like, if you have money, you can play at AAU. But like, how has, now with the transfer portal being at play here, like, how important is AAU now, right? Like, for upcoming aspiring college athletes, how important is it knowing that the campus is so easily accessible in college basketball? To keep a job, it's about winning. You got to win.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
Yeah. Again, like most things, they can get influenced by the opportunity for money, right? So I think kind of what you're saying is, right, AAU has changed. It was supposed to be like, okay, yep, you're the best person. We need a point guard, and you can be on this team. And yep, I need this friend. Now we've built a team, and now we're competing against these other than people.
Right.
Are coming and watching you and selecting, who they think would be a good fit for them.
Yeah.
The number of AAU teams that exist, and you're like, wait, and then you find out, well, that one broke off because they took the 3 best players, and now, they're charging X for people to play on this team. And parents say things like, oh my gosh, my kid has to be on that team or else they're not going to make it to college. And they're not going to get a scholarship. So they invest in all of this. It just has ballooned, in a way that maybe is not as beneficial as we wanted it to be or hoped that it could be. What I would say is relationships, though, are still really, really important. So, I mean, college coaches need to keep the relationships with all the different AAU programs, and maybe in some cases high school programs, because not everybody participates in AAU.
Yep.
Though most do. And the college coaches need to keep those lines of communication open and honest, and appreciate that they're going to have to work really hard.
Yeah.
But I know some of the AAU tournaments and stuff have, gotten so big and so expensive, not only for us to go as institutions, but for the players and the parents and, and stuff. So it's probably watered it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, honestly, college coach's responsibility is to, whatever the landscape is, find the player that's a good fit for.
Right. So if I'm an aspiring, college player and, I go on an official visit and, one of the questions could be like, hey, how many scholarships exist, right? Like how are you determining, how many scholarships you're able to give out? I know it's limited. So what's that decision-making process like?
Yeah. So our coaches and most coaches, they have control over their scholarship allotment, right? And most Division I institutions at the moment are at the, whatever the limit is in that, in women's basketball at the moment, though it may change, is, 15, right? Full scholarships. That's what they have.
Got it.
They may say, you know what, though, I need a team of 17. And so I'm going to have some walk-ons, and that's, they then, all kinds of boards, right? That say, okay, well, I've got this person graduating, so I'm going to have one scholarship available. Do I need a point guard? Do I need a big? They are mapping that out. That's their responsibility to figure that out. I think from the student athlete's perspective, those kind of questions should be asked of the coach, and the coach that's recruiting them should be okay to answer that, right? And hopefully they're honest. I'd say not everybody is always as honest as they should be, but if the answer, let's say you're being recruited and you ask me that and your family asks me that, I should be able to say, well, just I have 3 scholarships for your class, and I'm looking for a point guard and two bigs. That's what I need in this class. And then you should be okay when I turn around and say, and right now it's between you and, and somebody else.
Yeah. Let's talk about coaching, right? There's going to be people here who listen to the show and are interested in coaching at the collegiate level. So what are some things as an AD that you're looking for, when hiring a coach?
So if I'm hiring a head coach in particular, I'm very clear, even when I've used search firms or if I've done it myself, is that, like, first of all, you have to be a person of integrity. I have no interest in discussing, like, if a coach, a candidate were saying to me, like, well, could we do this and, maybe toe the line? Like, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
For me, I'm interested in finding the people that, they want to do this with integrity. They are absolutely committed to the student athlete, success. They're competitive, right? So let's figure this out. I'm honest about what we have or maybe don't have. And do you believe, as the coach that I'm trying to, to recruit, do you believe you can be successful here? Do you want to be here? Not, I just want to be a coach. So if we're talking to people who are interested in being coaches, when you're early in your career, you're just trying to get experience, right? So sometimes you have to go to, well, I never even heard of this place. Right? But you're going to get experience and you're going to get exposed to different people. And it's your responsibility to absorb, as much from maybe the leaders in that department, other coaches, et cetera. And then as you move through your career, maybe you can start to be a little bit more, specific. But when I'm hiring a head coach, by the time I'm hiring a head coach, I don't want somebody that just wants to be a head coach. I'm not bringing someone in to lead you that is not 100% into being here.
Right.
So that's hard through the process to weed that out. I think we've been really lucky here that we have worked hard to match those things up. And we, as a outcome, we have some coaches that have been here for a long time that have been very successful.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Now, in terms of experience, right? What particular experience? If you see, like, let's say you have a resume and you're looking at it and you're like, okay, these are some things that makes me go to that second interview, right? Whatever your process is. But what are some specific things you're looking for?
Resume could be important. It could be important, is important. But beyond that, like I said, with relationships, somebody's going to know this person that I know. Like, what are they really like that could, so it could say on there, let's say you're 100-0 as a basketball coach. So somebody may look at that in our HR department or across campus and say, oh, gosh, they're an undefeated basketball coach. They have to be the best coach in the world. Yeah. And then I may be like, okay, let's find out about this, this person. Okay, they ran 16 people off their team and, nobody else in the department, supports them. They've, they curse at all the officials or whatever. So yes, they may be successful, but the resume itself is not enough for me.
Yeah. So, in my experience, like, I've had so many different assistant coaches and then a few head coaches. So how do you develop a sustainable career as a coach in college athletics? Like, is it annual contracts? Do you have to have specific benchmarks in your career to keep your job? Yeah. Like, how do I have a sustainable career as a coach?
Part of it is that you do have to accept, like I was saying before, with the work-life balance.
Yes.
Stuff, you do have to accept that a lot of coaching positions are what are termed at will.
Yeah.
Right. And that, you don't typically, for assistant coaches across the board, don't all get a lot of contracts. They're just like everybody else at the institution where, we hire you and you're doing this job. But then maybe, after 3 years, I may say, well, you're not doing it the way that I was hoping you would do. We're not as successful. And that, unfortunately, is part of the assistant coaching movement.
Yeah.
Head coaches, and I'm not saying that some assistant coaches don't have contracts. Some do.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say that's the large majority. Head coaches, on the other hand, in basketball and many other sports, not all, do tend to get contracts. And they're typically 4 or 5 years. That's fairly typical. I'd say, going out on the limb that, 80 to 90% of the head coaching contracts, that's what you will see. For me, the hope is that, yes, we have a contract, but the last thing I want is I hope I didn't hire someone who, after a year, I'm like, what have I done?
Yeah.
Right? So you have to do your due diligence on the front end to say, like, yeah, this is good. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with giving you this contract. And the hope is that after a few years, I want to extend it because I think you are the right person, in the long runs.
Yeah. And are there like, hey, you have to win within maybe 3 years, you have to win, let's say, the Patriot League championship, or, some of your players have to get first team. You know what I mean? Like are there things like that are in terms of like expectations?
Again, I'll speak for myself too, because this comes up in every head coaching interview process. Everyone, doesn't matter what the sport is. And I'm okay with the question. And I think it should be asked. That the head coach candidate will ask me, what are your expectations for me? And what they want to know is exactly what you said. Do you expect me to win the conference in next year?
Yeah.
If I don't, are you going to fire me?
Right.
There's a percentage. Most people don't say like how many, conference players or anything like that. It's usually about at the end of the day.
Gotcha.
Going to the NCAA tournament, whatever. And certainly in basketball, that is something that stands out. My answer is very consistent with as I'm hiring.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say to you, if you don't win X number of games, that, then there's, first of all, that's crazy. It's all the things you can't control, right?
Yeah.
Student athletes, by the way, right? Yeah, you recruited a great class. We're all excited about them. And then for whatever reason, God forbid, somebody gets injured, and, or maybe, leaves the team. Maybe they had to separate from the team for something, or somebody gets in trouble or whatever. There's so many things that you can't control.
Yep.
What is very obvious, though, is if the program is headed in this direction, right? Are we headed in the right direction? Do I feel good about the culture? Are student athletes having a good experience? And I'd say that I would hope that those conversations had been had ahead of time.
Right.
Because the head coach deserves to know what the expectations are, and and you should be okay with expressing them.
So the podcast is about, careers, obviously career opportunities within specifically the sport of basketball. And also too, just about sustainability. How have you been able to, you started from, I think you were a coach at Penn, but then Villanova, you had some leadership opportunities there, Stony Brook, Loyola now. So tell me, how have you been able to sustain yourself? You said for 30 years so far? Yeah.
Really, right. Yeah. I don't mind saying, I'm 56 years old. So I was an athlete. You graduate when you're, 21 or 22. And since then I've been in college athletics, so add that all up. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But in terms of for me, and this doesn't mean this is for everybody, but for me, I was always open to what else was out there. Right. I personally, other than when I said I want to be a lawyer, which I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, great. So I said what I was going to do. It was clear to my family. I was committed to that all through college. So we're talking about like 6 years of being all into that. Yet I never did it. And I don't think it closed any doors for me.
Yeah.
But when I talk to student athletes and others that, may be interested in this field or even athletics, I tell them, just stay open to possibilities, right? Let yourself be open. Talk to a professor. Maybe they'll see something in you that you're not aware of. And if somebody gives you the opportunity where you can take an opportunity to volunteer or to learn about something or to sit in, I tell younger administrators all the time, and I try to take the opportunities to mentor people in different places. I say, go ask, the assistant athletic director if you can sit on a meeting with them.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to say yes. Unless it's something confidential, right? But people love to share what they do in the world. So stay open to that. And, so student athletes, sometimes they'll say to me, can I come, can I shadow you for a day? And I'm like, yeah, there's sometimes it's going to be boring.
Right. Yeah.
There's other times I might have to kick you out of a meeting because you can't hear what's going on in there. But, sure. Because they have, for the most part, are not exposed to, to what you do. So that's what I would say is like, go try and experience as much as you can and stay open to what the possible, ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, exposure is important. And that's obviously one of the reasons why I created this platform, was to give exposure to opportunities, because as a college athlete, like I didn't have that much time to intern. I didn't even care about the career resource center that was there. I was just like, I'm here to play ball. That's all I know. I invested my time here. I want to keep my scholarship. I want to do well in academics. Yep. That was my focus, but no real exposure to opportunities within the industry. So, to hear your experience, to hear your story, I know it's going to be inspiring for other people. I've always been inspired by your leadership, So yeah, again, thank you for your time. I think people are going to learn a lot just about what you do in just college athletics in general.
I hope so. Happy to share, and as I said, like, it's really, this is one of the fulfilling things is to see a student athlete from the time that they came in just to develop in so many different ways. And then, to be able to come full circle or what have you to this moment. And, obviously love your family and stuff too, right? Because they've been supportive of you through the whole process. The problem is not everybody has that.
Yeah.
So like we have to recognize in these roles, whether it's as a coach or as an administrator, we may have to fill that spot for some people, and that is part of our responsibility. And some people do that, better than others. But that's an important piece too.
Yeah. Let's talk about the evolution of women's basketball. Now, I know in your time, basketball, women's basketball, there was talent always. When I was coming up, I was looking up to Dawn Staley, right? Like those, Tina Thompson, Cynthia Cooper, like those players, for me, they were dogs. Like they were good right back then. I think because there's more visibility, because you're Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark, there's more visibility for women's basketball. How have you seen, I guess, support on campus? Have you seen attendance grow from where we are now with women's basketball? Or
it's a great question because you can kind of look at where we are now and all the attention, and many people will say it's just because of Caitlin Clark, and Angel Reese or what have you. And I just think though, Dawn Staley's a great one. No, it's because of coaches and stuff that really pushed the envelope, and demanded, right. They knew that they had a good product. You can't just make people watch. You can't, right? Mm-hmm. But you can demand equal treatment and say the right thing so that eventually, people will start watching. And obviously that's what's happening now. And it's great. It is great to see. And I think it will continue. And I have seen as well kind of a shift in people watching sports that just appreciate the good athleticism, as opposed to saying something like, I don't want to go to a women's game, or what have you. It's kind of like, have you seen them play? Right? Like, they're awesome, and you see more folks in the stands, let's say a group of young men, right? With their shirts off and painted and cheering for that team, not just because they are or aren't men or women. It's because that's a good display of athleticism. Are we anywhere near where we need to be? No, but absolutely the last, few years you've seen this uptick. So kudos to those young women, kudos to the coaches that have, blazed those trails, and then the ones even before that many of us, won't remember or know, that have helped us all. And
the pioneers that paved the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the last segment of the show is called Grateful to the Game. Mm-hmm. You were a former field hockey and lacrosse player. So I'm going to generalize it to grateful to sports.
Okay.
So what, based on your experience playing, coaching, and now leading in athletics, why are you grateful for sports? What has it done for your life that you're appreciative of? And as you do that, I'm going to have you sign this basketball.
Awesome.
Everybody signs the ball.
Do I have to talk and sign?
Yes, that's the challenge.
Right. I mean, I was an athlete at one point. I should be able to do that. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for the people that are in this business that commit to, the student athlete experience. Mine was a great student athlete experience. I say all the time that, if you're fortunate enough as a student athlete and your experience is good, you will have true lifetime, friendship. And so I'm grateful that college athletics in this particular case gave me the opportunity to build those kind of relationships. And I'm also grateful that I've had leadership opportunities that allows me to hopefully continue to create those, those experiences for other student athletes. But I will say, for basketball, and I wasn't, you asked the question generally, but I also think, basketball, because every Division I institution has to have basketball. They don't have to have every other sport.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So in essence, so all 360 have basketball on the men's and the women's side. And right, but they may not all have field hockey. They may not all have lacrosse. They may not all have squash. They may not all have whatever. So there's a history and a connection of how important basketball, and if we speak specifically about women's basketball, has been to the acceleration, the importance, of college athletics for women. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah. So there you go.
That's interesting. Way to finish the show, man.
Yeah.
You killed it. So thank you. Thank you again for your time. I learned so much information that I can now share with my athletes, information that people are watching who are coaches, players, aspiring coaches, people who just want to work in basketball but don't know additional opportunities out of playing or coaching. I think they're going to learn a lot from our chat today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And keep doing what you're doing, right? Because you've recognized the opportunity to give back and to help others to navigate, the landscape out there. And obviously you're helping in many ways. So proud of you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. That's Business of Basketball. If you learn anything from this episode, like it, share it, comment some of your favorite gems that Donna has shared with us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.